Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, August 3rd, 2018, the WNW 346. And I'm going to talk a lot about journalism. And I want to start really with one big story, but how the journalism is affecting your perception, especially if you're watching the mainstream media. I just want to start with USA Today, aka Tiger Beat. And they got this stupid NFL thing, which they're protesting at work. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. Trump to Sessions, muzzle Mueller. Now, folks, let you know where we are. This is not a legitimate investigation. Period. The end. And this all came out because of the the IG report. The investigator Horowitz came out with how they applied for the FISA warrants. They used phony information paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC to apply and commit fraud on the court to get a FISA warrant. That's the secret court, FISA. And to spy on candidate Trump and spy on the incoming Trump administration to try to destroy him and to try to commit a coup. We have a failed coup here. Now, you're not hearing that from the mainstream media. This is a statement of fact. They used phony information paid for by Hillary Clinton that the MSM will not tell you about. And they lied repeatedly for four FISA warrants, repeatedly the FBI, DOJ, to try to keep Donald Trump from getting into office is what all the texts and all the other things, and try to take him out of office and to try to unmask names. And according to James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, it was all Obama's fault, and said it live on CNN. That is not going to be talked about by the mainstream legacy propaganda media. You are not being informed. And yes, indeed, as the president says, they are the enemy of the people when they lie. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But let's just talk about this headline that talks about the Donald Trump calling this a witch hunt, but yet they quote angry Democrats angry Democrats that are doing his dirty work. He called the investigation a terrible situation. Donald Trump also says that this is a witch hunt, and he has good reason to say so because they used a phony documents to make up a false narrative of that Donald Trump was in bed with the Russians. I mean, if you just look at this here, this is just a little something they put out here. I mean, if you look at this right here, okay, so Clinton with Putin, that's okay. George W. with Putin, that's okay. Schumer with Putin, it's okay. Okay, fine. Hillary with Putin, that's okay. Obama with Putin, right here, that's okay, no problem. Medvedev, we'll have more flexibility after the election. Trump with Putin, traitor. He's a traitor. He's a traitor. Completely and totally 100% false narrative. Let me get back to this story. And in this story, it says, I'm just going to cut. Rudy Giuliani is saying, well, it's just his opinion, Donald Trump's opinion. Yes, of course he wants it to end. If he wanted it to end, he could just fire Sessions, and he could fire Rosenstein. He could just replace them if he really wanted it to end. But of course he wants it to end because it's a travesty of justice. It is an illegitimate investigation. They wouldn't have gotten, this is according to Clapper, to DNI Clapper, the head of all the intelligence services, the director of national intelligence, that the Mueller investigation wouldn't have got started without the president pushing this. It's a phony counterintelligence investigation that they got a fraudulent warrant by using phony a dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton that was compiled by a foreign agent and Russians. This is an illegitimate investigation. That's a fact. And that's according to DNI Clapper, who blames this on Obama. That's not me saying it. That's not Dave Jandis saying it, who's going to be a guest on the early Sunday release. Got a bunch of new stuff to talk about. That's not even Trump saying it. That's his former employee who was the head spook, the head of all national intelligence, James Clapper. It's Obama's fault. He's going to talk a little bit about that, about James Clapper coming out and saying that, and why he came out. It's kind of weird the way he came out and said that. I mean, they were talking about Trump, and then all of a sudden he just broke into, well, let me tell you something about Obama. Should it be? We were talking about it. We were talking about Trump. But anyway, it goes on. It says that Mueller is investigating Russian attempts to sway the 2016 election towards Trump, and whether anyone from Trump's presidential campaign cooperated with Moscow. We're 2 years into this, folks, and Tiger Beat here can't also report that not a single stitch of information, not a single a piece of evidence links Donald Trump to the Russians. As a matter of fact, Rob Rosenstein said quite clearly on more than one occasion that there was no collusion between Russia and Donald Trump, that the campaign wasn't involved with the Russians. But they can't say that. They won't say that. They can't say it's never been in here in USA Today that Hillary. Don't you think that's a big story? Hillary Clinton paid for phony evidence that they used in 4 FISA applications. Isn't that a big deal? How they got the investigation going with phony evidence, so they made it up to frame him. That's what Joe DeGenova, former federal prosecutor, says. They framed him. That's what Greg Jarek's new book is out. They exonerated Hillary Clinton from obvious crimes, and they're trying to frame Donald Trump in a failed coup attempt. And folks, and I just wanted you to understand how missing this is too stupid to be stupid. This is a huge deal. We know that the Kerry State Department was involved. John Kerry was involved. He got the dossier. We know that Hillary Clinton, her State Department was involved. We know the FBI was involved. We know the DOJ was involved. We know the White House was involved. We know 2 presidents were involved. Now Obama, named by DNI Clapper, and Clinton, who took big speaking fees because of Uranium One. We know that 2 FBI directors, Comey and Lynch, are involved. We know that 2 Secretary of States are involved. That'd be John Kerry and Hillary Clinton. We know that that John Brennan is involved, former head of the CIA. He also handled the phony dossier. We know that John Clapper is involved. We know that the president and most of the top people in his White House are involved with this. But this doesn't happen to be a story for the mainstream media. And that means they are enemies of we the people. They're lying by omission. Now that I've set up the stage that you're not being told, and incidentally, this is what I think I can back all this up. This is all out with the Inspector General reports with Horowitz. There's also a parallel investigation going on with a prosecutor, Huber, which is going to drop big bombs on people, and the masses are going to be totally surprised at how big this is going to be. And it's because you're not being informed along the way by the mainstream press. So I'll give you one more example of more fake news. I mean, this was, remember this just a few weeks ago? John Kelly reportedly leaving the White House this summer. Widely reported, but original story came from the Wall Street Journal. John Kelly expected to depart from the administration as early as this summer, possibly soon, according to people familiar with the matter. And I say, what people? How do you do anonymous sourcing and anonymous stories, and you don't call over to the White House? Hey, maybe call over to, John Kelly, he's the chief of staff, and say, is this true? We heard some our sources say this. Or maybe, how about Sarah Sanders? Hey, can you go on the record and tell us, is he leaving soon? Well, evidently somebody did, because this was the Washington Examiner. White House story about John Kelly. This is a week or so later. Leaving is fake news. They called over and that's not true. Well, lo and behold, this past week, what do we have here? John Kelly agrees to remain as chief of staff until 2020 at Trump's request. So it was fake news, folks. How do you do? Let me tell you, folks, I never did a story that had an anonymous source, and the bar was so high to use an anonymous source. Especially, I was an investigative reporter at ABC and CNN. It was unbelievable. Then you had to back up that anonymous source. You can get a tip from an anonymous source, but you can't go on the air just with the anonymous source. You got to back all that up. You need a couple of sources on top of that, and your anonymous source, and then you better prove to us who the anonymous source is and why do they need anonymity. Made the bar so high I never used it. I can't remember using an anonymous source. May have gotten a tip from an anonymous source, but I never did a wholesale story, a whole cloth story out of an anonymous source. And in this case, these people aren't doing investigative work. They could just simply, for most of the stuff, could call the White House. Hello, Ms. Sanders. Is this true? Is John Kelly leaving? No, it's fake news. Okay, boom. You walk into your boss's office and say, well, they say it's fake news. I'll include that in the story. Well, it's not much of a story if you come on out and you completely refute your own story, but that's not what they do. I don't know how they approve that kind of stuff. I can never do stuff like that. And also, this is the Wall Street Journal. Let me just bring back one of the Wall Street Journals. Oh, the Wall Street Journal. Oh, wow. And remember this, Fed reporter Pedro da Costa is leaving the Wall Street Journal after asking Janet Yellen, Chair Yellen, uncomfortable questions. De La Costa asked Chair Yellen about an investigation the Fed allegedly killed. It was about leaks from the Fed that people made money on. He got canned by the Wall Street Journal. Oh, the Wall Street Journal. They canned a guy who was asking legitimate questions about leaks from the Federal Reserve where people made money on the information, but he got canned for that. Yeah, more fake news. And then you have that idiot. And I do mean idiot. I'm sorry. I work there. I know Jim Acosta. I don't know him that well, but I work with him. We pass each other in the hallways. Jim Acosta, who, if I ever take over CNN, and I probably won't, but if I did, he'd be one of the first I'd fire. Actually, he'd be number 2. Jeff Zucker would be number 1. I'd fire him. Actually, I'd be taking over for him. But anyway, he'd be railroaded right out the door. And about, 3 dozen other people that are on the air over there. So Jim Acosta was out the other night at a Trump rally, and they're yelling behind, the whole crowd, yelling behind him. He actually says, they're yelling behind me that CNN sucks and fake news, and he thinks this is, the Donald Trump is the enemy of the people. Remember when Jim Acosta came out for this dreadful shooting and was trying to draw a correlation between Donald Trump pointing out the lies and omissions and the false narratives of the fake news, and that this crazy shooter that lost a court case with his newspaper and he killed 5 people, that's the kind of stuff, the false narratives that Jim Acosta wants to point out. Remember when President Trump was President-elect Trump, and Jim Acosta was trying to ask him embarrassing questions about this ridiculous, now phony dossier, where they didn't even have something like Michael Cohen was over in Eastern Europe. Oops, nope, wrong Michael Cohen. He wasn't running down the facts. He was trying to throw a pie in the president-elect's face, and that's when Donald Trump came out. You are fake news. No, you are very fake news. I'd have yanked him out of the White House right then and there. You didn't run down your own story. You're going to ask him embarrassing questions about a dossier that is completely phony. That first fact about Michael Cohen came out early on. As soon as I heard that, boom, I'm not using this. Oh, no. Untruthful in one, untruthful in all. But here we go. He's whining. He doesn't realize his career's over when they're done with him at CNN. He can't do this. He can't start GMAcosta.com. No. CNN's Acosta, all journalists should make bumper stickers and buttons and chant, "We are not the enemy of the people." I say, yeah, you are the enemy of the people when you distort, omit, and outright lie. And I just gave some examples about distortions, omissions. How about the big admission that we are facing the biggest biggest failed coup in the history of America, and yet you want to keep propelling the false narrative that somehow Donald Trump is a Russian spy and a turncoat traitor for for Russia. Really? Really? And that is a shred of evidence. They've been doing this officially since July of 2016. Actually, it started before that, and still not 4 different FISA warrants. Spying. We had MI6, British intelligence also working with the Obama administration, trying to find something they can hang on Donald Trump and his administration. Not a single shred of evidence that links Donald Trump to the Russians. And incidentally, according to Obama's own intelligence officials, Rob Rosenstein, you name it, not a single vote was changed by the Russians. Not a single one. Mueller has never even looked at the scene of the crime, the DNC server, that they wouldn't allow the FBI and Homeland Security to even look at. Wow. And Mueller's been doing this investigation for how long? Has he ever asked about the server? Have you heard stories about the server? Have you heard any reporters say, oh, excuse me, Robert Mueller, Special Prosecutor Mueller, why haven't you looked at the server, the centerpiece, the scene of the crime? You end up like De La Costa, right? You end up like a guy over that asked a question to the Fed. It is fake news. Let's go on, move on. NBC's Chuck Todd slams White House Spock for refusing to condemn Stalin-era enemy of the people. Hey, if you don't remember right there, Chucky boy, Pravda was an enemy of the people. They misinformed people. It was propaganda. Hello? You're lying, Chuck. You're a Democratic operative masquerading as some sort of journalist. Then we just go on MSNBC. Trump, and this I know was MSNBC, Chuck Todd. Trump is branding legacy media for what it is, propaganda. Legacy media for exactly what it is. Let me give you Sarah Sanders, White House Press Secretary report. But let me get up propaganda so you understand what propaganda is. And you think, that's exactly what they're doing. That's what I think every time I read this. This is the Oxford Dictionary, propaganda. Information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Hello? Propaganda, Chucky. Chuck Todd, Jim Acosta. You need to read this here. You need to read this because you are biased. I mean, Acosta is acting like an activist, somebody that wants to debate the White House press secretary instead of gathering information, asking pointed questions about what's going on in terms of, maybe how about this failed coup? How about the economy? How about something like that instead of this ridiculous, would you please back off on talking about, the enemy of the people that could cause violence? Nobody's worried about the violence that caused, people telling them that they should go after the Trump campaign, or the Trump cabinet, or the White House press secretary, or all the people that are attacked in malls and all over the country because they wore a MAGA hat. The mainstream press not worried about that kind of violence. Let me just read you the thing from Sarah Sanders. Where my glasses go? Don't tell me I don't have my glasses. Here we go. All right, here. So, okay. I don't want to start over. I've already way into this thing. This is Sarah Sanders' answer to Jim Acosta the other day. The president has made his position known. It's ironic, Jim, that not only you and the media attack the president for his rhetoric when they frequently lowered the level of conversation in this country. Repeatedly, the media resorts to personal attacks without any content other than to incite anger. The media has attacked me personally. This is Sarah Sanders. The media has attacked me personally on a number of occasions, including your own network, that said I should be harassed as a life sentence. They said this on the air. I should be harassed as a life sentence, that I should be choked. ICE officials are not welcome in their places of worship, and personal information is shared on the internet. When I was hosted by the Correspondents Association, this is the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the White House Propagandist Dinner, Weasel Dinner, of which almost all of you are members, you brought up a comedian to attack my appearance and call me a traitor to my own gender. But, don't talk about that. And I'll tell you, this is the problem. Maybe a couple of neurons are touching together here. That, oh my gosh, we're destroying ourselves. They can't do that. How dare President Trump and Sarah Sanders and anybody else fight back and report our lies and lies by omission and our bias? How dare we do that? Remember, the press's main strength is to make you think that what they say is accurate, fair, unbiased. They told you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. You can't say that about the mainstream media. And I work there, folks. I worked there, and I'll bring up something here in just a minute. I wanted to bring up this before I finish this part of the segment, and that is the New York Times. Salzberger, A.G. Salzberger, he's worried. He took a meeting the president asked for. Maybe the president tried to put on an olive branch a couple of weeks ago, but nothing changed. I mean, they're totally biased, the New York Times. And the New York Times publisher and Trump clash over president's threats against journalism. No, he's not threatening journalism. He's exposing the lies by omission, and propaganda. They don't like that. And thought shaping and a biased nature of journalists. And so here is Salzberger, who comes out and says, the phrase fake news is untrue and harmful. And I'm far more concerned about this labeling of journalists as enemy of the people, Mr. Salzberger continued and said, I warned that this, and he's talking about his meeting with Donald Trump. Of course, Trump opened up a Twitter storm. You know what he thinks about the mainstream. I warned about this inflammatory language is contributing to a rise in threats against journalists and will lead to violence. And as I said, he's not worried about violence against the Trump cabinet, the Trump administration, anybody who voted for Donald Trump. They're all enemies of the people. They're all deplorables. It's all your fault. It's, you're stupid, Cro-Magnon. You're idiots, people who voted for Donald Trump, because they don't want the New World Order, open borders, universal basic income, and they don't want to abolish ICE. They don't want to pay for all this welfare and all the votes for Democrats. That's what that's about, really, the open borders, because they don't have a real platform other than abolish ICE and Medicaid for everybody. That'll be $3 trillion a year, and or Medicare, whatever, and universal basic income, jobs for everybody, free stuff that they can't pay for. And so, and just so the, this is, I just want to make sure that you understand that this is the New York Times publisher, A.G. Salzberger. He's worried about threats. Really? Why don't you worry about being fair and objective? And you're a newspaper that your family owns and you were part of it, okay, back in 2016, that you said, and I followed this the entire campaign, and it couldn't be any more lopsided and biased. And there's a reason for that. And this got approved to be on your newspaper. This was in August of 2016, the 7th of 2016, in the New York Times. Trump is testing the norms of objectivity in journalism. Let's just read along here. I just picked out a few quotes from it. You can go on and find this online under this title on Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, whatever. You have to throw out textbook American journalism has been around for a better part of the past half century, if not longer, and approach it in a way you've never approached anything in your career. He's telling journalists to be biased. Move closer than you've ever been to being oppositional. But you're not supposed to be oppositional. You're supposed to be objective, not oppositional. That's biased. Again, propaganda. Mr. Trump, abnormal and potentially dangerous candidate. Really? We're on that? Some more of that lunacy and quackery? And then he ends by saying, this is an op-ed in the New York Times, okay? It's a journalist's job to be true to the readers, the viewers, and true to the facts in a way that'll stand up to history's judgment. He was telling journalists to be biased and to go after Donald Trump and make sure he doesn't become president. Hey, Mr. Salzberg, are you proud of that? Without fear or favor, your little slogan. If you don't understand how biased you are, then you don't understand why you're going to go out of business sooner than you think. Oh, incidentally, they just hired some Asian chick at the New York Times that they discovered, had a tweet where she was tired of a dumb ass effing white people. She's going to be on the New York Times paper. Tweeted out, I'm tired of dumbass effing white people. Yeah. Oh, you're so fair and without fear or favor. What Donald Trump is doing is he's branding them. He's branding them for fake news and enemy of the people, and it's working because that's what they are. I mean, and don't take my word. I'm going to tell you about a report that was at Harvard. It's the Shorenstein Center of Media, Politics, and Public Policy, and it's based at Harvard, okay? This was in the first 100 days of a thing they did in the first 100 days of Donald Trump's administration. Now, check out this. Look at CNN here. Okay, hold on. Let me get it up here for you. Look at CNN. CNN's at the top of the page. Hold on. Let me get it to focus. There you go. Come on. There you go. CNN is at the top of the page here. Maybe get it out a little bit. There we go. CNN had, 93% negative news. NBC was right up underneath there. CBS. The New York Times, right here, they had, let me get my glasses on here. They had, 87% negative in the first 100 days. CNN was at 93% negative. NBC, 93% negative. CBS, 91% negative. New York Times, 87% negative. Washington Post, 83% negative. Are you getting my drift here? That's not objective. And that doesn't count all the stories that they left out and how they spun them. What they should have spun the truth, it would have been positive. If they had just told the truth, it would have been positive. About how they said that, oh, no, the intelligence people weren't wiretapping Donald Trump. Yeah, they were. Remember that? They said, come on. Yeah, they were. And New York Times came out and said that. And actually, their source was correct. They were tapping him. They were wiretapping him. That's outrageous. The Sorensen, Harvard, also did a little thing and compared the first 100 days of the overall growth stories. And this is how it worked out with Trump, 80% on average. And Obama, 40% negative, 59% positive, Obama. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's there in black and white. The bias is definable. It was defined by Harvard, hardly a right-wing, wackadoodle, far-right institution. It's as liberal as you can get, Harvard. And, even Harvard law professor Dershowitz says, well, Trump, there's no crime here. There's no crime. But we're still on this thing that the mainstream press is hoping Mueller can knock him out of office. Because really they're co-conspirators. They're the biggest super PAC that the Democrats have, and that's the mainstream press. They want to tell you, oh, we're journalists with a big J, and we're, you should believe us. We're fair. No, come on. They're not. And I've in the last several years, I've gone through excruciating pain to tell you, but this thing with this failed coup is something that's going to, when the indictments start rolling, when this thing finally comes to fruition, people are going to be stunned. They're going, what? Huh? What? Excuse me? And I want to just kind of, before I go with the last thing, which is good news, is I just want to tell you about this. Well, I'll say this. One piece of good news reported overseas, and that's former EDL leader Tommy Robinson, freed from prison after judges quash contempt ruling. And this wasn't just a simple quash. Number one, Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. I don't know why that is. The overseas newspapers basically painted him as a far-right activist. Really? He's a free speech activist, and just a few days before he was arrested and thrown in the slimer, understand this, folks, he was charged, he was prosecuted, and he was thrown in jail all in the same day. Kangaroo court. He had a big free speech rally, which a lot of people are speaking out about all this massive immigration, these radical Muslims. He's a guy that was talking about these, grooming gangs and rape gangs and pedophilia, alleged pedophilia, and pointing it out to the people, and then having these big rallies with thousands of people showed up for free speech. I mean, England, UK doesn't want to let Steve Bannon in the country. They're afraid of him. We're afraid. We need to protect our democracy. No, you don't. You need to protect your racket. When Tommy Robinson got put in jail in one day, arrested, tried, and jailed in one day for 13 months. They put out the word to the media, don't cover this. You don't talk about this. But, the Chief Justice of England delivered a total beatdown on the unfair conviction and treatment of Robinson. This is Breitbart's title, Tommy Robinson. I was kept in solitary confinement for 23 and a half hours a day. Excrement pushed through the windows. And the judge, the top judge in the UK, gave the lower court a huge beat down about how bad it was and how they didn't give him the fair treatment, and they charged him and convicted him of a crime, and he got thrown in 13. It wasn't a crime, and we're not sure they even had a contempt. They say they were going to hear it again. I don't know. The way it sounds to me that he's done. It's over. It's out. And so there's a glimmer of hope for the UK. A glimmer of hope for the UK. And one of the last things I said, I see Jim Acosta there talking about standing at a Trump rally, and they're screaming fake news and CNN sucks. And let me tell you, I work for CNN, and I got this jacket, and I can't wear this jacket. Here's my CNN jacket, okay? It's really heavy. It's super heavy. It's a winter. It's like something you can go to Antarctica in. And here's my CNN jacket. Man, I used to be proud of CNN. Used to be proud of it. I mean, here's the front thing, CNN, nice jacket, well done. And, nobody stood behind me when I was out at whatever event and screamed CNN's fake news. CNN sucks. When I was there, it didn't suck. It is really quite unbelievable how they've destroyed their own business. I mean, in most of their evening shows, they only got 1 million viewers. And they got a heavy expense in terms of equipment, real estate, taxes, talent, support staff, video editors, producers, writers, bookers. I mean, they got a lot of weight there. And it's just really unbelievable how far down they've gone. I mean, you don't hear the promo of James Earl Jones, the most trusted name in news. Not. I mean, if I was running the place, I would bring him back. I would fire everybody that I would fire almost everybody. And then I would have a new promo. I'd have James Earl Jones, the most trusted name in news, again. But they're not, they've ruined it. I mean, I don't know if they're ever going to recover from it. And yet Jeff Zucker, and this is how you know it's a total Luciferian New World Order, they don't care about making money fix, is Jeff Zucker, the guy running the place that's imploded the ratings, they signed him up till the year 2020. I mean, that's unbelievable. Just really unbelievable. And so, but the big loser here is we the people, the public. They're not informing the public of big things. This isn't just we didn't cover, a guy that shot a home intruder in Oklahoma City, or we didn't cover a teacher that was, something bad happened to her somewhere else. I mean, you could debate on when you have a national stage of what you're going to cover and what you're not, and what's the mass audience appeal and all that, but not the biggest coup and failed coup in American history. Not the biggest abuse of power in American history that involves all this government. Mark Taylor aptly pointed out early on, and it was one of those things he said. I said, "Say what? What? You got to be careful." Donald Trump has to be careful. The Justice Department has to be careful. They don't take down entire parts of government. It's huge, folks. I mean, FBI, DOJ, State Department, White House. It's unbelievable the amount of people involved in this failed coup. Foreign spies. Unbelievable what's involved. The Democratic National Committee, Hillary Clinton. I mean, the amount of people involved in this attempted coup is stunning. And when the hammer falls, and again, I've said this before, I'll say this again. Donald Trump's not going to let this go. They have threatened his family. They basically have threatened it with murder, with bankruptcy, with jail time. They had Easy Rider there. Threatened him with that pedophile should grab his 12-year-old son and put him in a cage. Child rape. Peter Fonda. Oh, then later he said, "Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have said that." Yeah, but you sent a message. Here you go. You ain't gonna let that go, folks. It ain't gonna be business as usual. Nobody's gonna go to jail. I think not. This is not gonna be business as usual. This is gonna be fight to the death. And the public is gonna be stunned when the fur flies. They don't know anything about this. They're being misled. They're being thought shaped. They're being lied to by omission and outright lies. And then you have people like Jim Acosta. We're not the enemy of the people. Yeah, you are. Thank you so much for your comments, your donations. That helps us out. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of tech work here recently. I think I'm working on it. But anyway, getting it done. Thank you very much for all your support. And remember to prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. And I mean this, folks. Fear not. Don't be fearful. I want you to be informed. You know, fear is a thief. Fear steals your good judgment. Fear steals your faith. Fear steals your good judgment. Don't be fearful. Fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control.